All right, so this week we are putting an outlet on the outside of the trailer because when we would camp and we would run heated blankets, charging our phones inside of our tents or anything like that, we'd have to run a cord. And so we'd plug into here. I put a hole in the floor with like a plug that it would go there. I've always been kind of concerned about little rodents kind of just shimmying up that and climbing up into the trailer. And then the other thing that we would do is we would run it out through the big door in the back, but then the door would be cracked all night. And that was fine when we were doing some of the water tests, but in the last video we put vents in the back. So we would like to have an outlet kind of on the wall. And surprisingly enough, those are kind of like a little bit difficult to find because it's set up so this will plug in and then this will be on the outside of the wall. A lot of them are set up so that power is coming into the trailer. I found the cord so that power is going out from the trailer, because instead of this being a female, it would be a male in there, and then you'd have to make like an adapter cord to make it work. But luckily I found the right deal. The other thing too is we're going to put it probably right here. So we need to figure out the swing of this table to make sure that we're not in the way of that. And then it looks like there's a beam right here. So probably we're kind of looking in this range, which will put the outlet. What we're thinking is probably putting the outlet in this range right here. So I'm going to do a lot of measurements, and it's still taking a little bit of engineering, because if I just put it onto this, every time you push the cord in, you're going to have that. So it kind of needs a spacer in between there. So not only does it need to be screwed in to the aluminum siding, but it also needs to be screwed into the wall here. So I found a plastic pipe, plumbing pipe, and it just seems to be perfect for this. So if I drill a hole big enough to put this in there, and then something like putting this as a spacer in there or something, that's what I'm kind of thinking. So we'll have to see how that works. I might put riv nuts around the outside so that this will screw into the riv nuts, and then so this will be tight against the aluminum siding, and then this will space out the inside. So then that way, if you're pushing in, you're technically pushing against this wall, and then if you're pulling out, hopefully the screws that I got, you'll be pulling against the wall. So I found the biggest that they would supply, or that you could easily find, which would be 3-inch 1032s, stainless, since it's going to be outside. So it seems like these are going to be a good fit, but not quite sure on how all this is going to currently work. This does fit around this nicely, but then it's almost a little bit tight around where the screws are at. And if it's a little bit tight around the screws, then that may mean that I'm not going to have enough room, or these screws are going to be, it's just, I'm going to have to look at this and see if maybe I cut this in half and then maybe I'm able to shimmy in some halves or something. I'm not quite sure that that is going to work, but I think the first thing is probably drilling out a pilot hole, kind of similar to what I did with the rear vents. So drilling out a hole from here, going straight through, straight to there. So then we start lining up all the holes, and then kind of figure it out from there. So this is, the hole on the inside is going to minimum need to be that big so that this can come out, and then probably going to clean up maybe with the router the hole so that it's not like a sharp burry mess that will just start cutting its way through that as we're driving down the road. But this is going to be just a big quality of life thing, because it would be really nice to just pull up to a campground. And then we found these at the hardware store. They actually were marked down, but I'll have an equivalent in the description along with this. So we'll hook that up, and then literally we won't have to dig for an extension cord, because we'll just plug there, and then the other one, we'll just have it as the dedicated going to the tent extension cord, probably somewhere close to it. So you just Velcro it off, boom, ready to go, ready to plug in. Just those little things that we put on a list last year that would make everything a little bit easier as we go. We're kind of in the diminishing returns because everything is currently working so well. We do have some big projects, but nothing that is as big as, say, needing a bathroom or solar power. So, but all right, I'm gonna start marking this out and lining it up, and then probably figure out what's going on with that. Okay, so I think we decided on, so I took off the machete that was right here. I think we decided to maybe put it right here on the outside due to the fact of the tables and the swing of everything. If I put it right there, then I can put it in the center between these two sets of screws, and it'll look fairly good from the outside. Now, the other table is basically swinging from here, so you couldn't put it anywhere here. And then there's a beam going right here that supports the tables, so you couldn't put it in the center there. It would end up being over here. So realistically, the only place to put it where it'd be in the center would be right here. And then on our road trips, sometimes we are, I don't even know how to describe it. Sometimes we just stack this full of stuff and we don't actually pack anything. So it might be more beneficial if it was just right there ready to go. And so the cords would basically be hanging right about here. This tub kind of backs in like that, so there is enough room right here for cords to be hanging. So I think we're probably just going to go right there. So it's going to measure it out. So what I've done is I've measured in between these two and then found the center, which is right there. And then I'm going from the end of this to find that center, and it's just a hair over 13 inches. So then I'm coming over here to find out where is that 13 inches that I want that plug coming out of. So probably in this region right there. And so if we have the one hanger, I would say in this range, holding on to the cord that's coming out, and then maybe the other hanger over here hanging on to the cord that's going to the tents. Maybe, I don't know. I have a long enough drill that I'm going to drill this, try to go in perfectly straight, like this way, and then poke out. And then from there, we should be able to do the hole saw from the other side. The unfortunate part is the ABS pipe that I have, it's bigger than 2¼ inches, smaller than 2½. But if I go any bigger, then I'm cutting into these holes right here, and that's just not going to work. So I think I'm going to have to go with the smaller hole saw and then possibly open it up by hand. So we'll see how that goes, just so that I'm not cutting into these holes that are going to need to be supporting for the aluminum wall. So all right, well, we're committed now. All right, so that looks like it's nice in the middle. So let's take the hole saw. Go super easy. So there's nothing supporting this part of the sheet aluminum. Oh, lost that. Hey, look at that. There's a cord right there. Isn't that fun? Okay, so gotta make sure we don't get that guy. All right, so I got the hole saw that should be good for the plug. So we're gonna do that on this side. Pretty sure I can, oh yeah. So just big enough so that that's gonna come through. We'll smooth it out and make it so it's not gonna chafe anything. All right, so I just have a drum sander on a drill to open this up so that this fits. All right, so now the pipe fits, and then the pipe will act as a spacer when you're pushing in the plug so that you're not getting any of that. It's pushing directly against the wall on the inside. So now I just need to cut this to size, and then we'll start worrying about all the holes. All right, just doing kind of a dry fit up just to see if it fits. So I still haven't cut anything just yet, the pipe wise. So we're just gonna square up the edge. And that's why we're squaring up the edge. All right, so apparently I need 1 inch 100. So all right, I think that is what we are looking for. Let's see. 1 inch 100 thousandths, inch 100 thousandths, 1 inch 100 thousandths. So I have a little bit of sandpaper, break this up, and then we will put this in the hole, and then this will be the spacer. I also think that we'll probably put a little bit of the construction adhesive on there just for weather sealing. So we just need to cut each screw down by about 800 thousandths. All right, so ready to put the whole thing together. There's my spacer. I'm gonna put that on there. I'm gonna put a little bit of the construction adhesive around this just to help it to stick and make it like a bigger pain to take off one day. So I'm just gonna send that around. Probably with this gasket that it has, it probably doesn't need this, but I'm all about overdoing it. All right, so that looks like enough to have a big cleanup. Just gonna make sure all the holes are still lined up. And then I'm gonna schmutz that in there. Then I'm gonna get this cord through before it starts making a bigger mess. All right, so then gonna get that, working around. Okay, now it's time to get all my screws. So the heads of these stainless steel screws kind of strip out kind of easily, so I would take it pretty easy. All right, so that's bolted on. Now I got like a rounded scraper to kind of clean up the edge. So just this with a paper towel. And then if there's any spots that you need to pack it back into, it's fairly easy. That way you can get a kind of a good finish. Okay, so if you're looking for like a smooth finish, some alcohol on a paper towel seems to do the trick. It's also really good for cleanup. So now I think we'll let that cure and set up, and we'll roll up and figure out how to mount the hangers on the inside. All right, so when we open up the tubs to find the extension cord we use to go out to the tents, we will roll that guy up right there. Got that right there, and should be none the wiser. Probably have at least a half hour cleaning up in here. It's the simplest projects that take the most tools, you know what I mean? So out here, everything looks... Maybe we'll still clean that up slightly, but there'll be a link in the description for everything we use. If you want to find this, I'll probably put a link for one that goes into the trailer and one that goes out of the trailer, depending on your application. They also sell this in a 20-inch cord, so that's just under 2 feet. And then this one is a 10-foot cord. So this one, as soon as we unravel it, it'll go right here. It'll go underneath this shelf, sit on those tables and be able to plug into there. And then we could have the door closed, but still have power to the outside. So that's just one more thing that is a little life improvement when we're on the road. So I think we'll do some road trips this summer and kind of go through whether these things actually improved anything or whether it just ripped off as we were driving down the road. But everything looks pretty good. It's pretty stout as you're pushing in because of that pipe that we cut. I keep wanting to say PVC, but it's not PVC. So this is what I was trying not to have, and now you have this. So it's much more stout as you're pushing in. So that was the point of that spacer. So pretty happy with that. So we have plenty more projects coming for this trailer. If you'd like to see anything that we're doing, there's always a playlist. If you have any questions, leave them down below. But keep in mind, there's always everything we're using in the description below in case you want to find it, just to be helpful. But thanks for watching.